lightweight, step at a side when we coming. Feel it in your chest, the syllables get pumping. People on the street get panic and start running. Words on loose leaf sheet, complete coming. I jump on my mind, I summon the rhyme, I'm dumping. Healing the blind, I promise to let the sun in. Sick of the dark ways, we march to the drumming. Jump when they tell us that they want to see jumping. Dad, I want to see some fist pumping. Lift something, take back what's yours. Say something that you know they might attack you for. Cause I'm sick of being treated like I had before. Like a stupid standing for what I'm standing for. Like this war's really just a different brand of war. Like it doesn't cater to rich and a fan of...
Hello and welcome to Wide Awake Radio. I'm your host, Charlie McGrath. It is the 13th day of December, Monday. If you're listening and not in the chat room, we have about 70 people in there right now. Head on over to wideawakenews.com and jump inside the chat room and join a bunch of like-minded folks. Now, I wanted to make a quick announcement about that chat room, just so everybody knows and is aware that's listening that hasn't been in the chat room before, or maybe it's your first time in there. We do have monitors in that chat room, so if it gets spammed or we get trolls in there dropping a bunch of racist stuff or a bunch of garbage, they will be quickly ejected. And, you know, it's not a matter of trying to curb speech. It is a matter of trying to keep a room that is a place that we all can go and share thoughts with like-minded folks. And I will say that I have absolutely zero control over that chat room. I monitor it during the show. I go to questions there at the break. I do not kick out anybody. The people who have been made monitors have been with the show from the very first broadcast we did, and they're here every single night, so they were given the power to monitor with some guidelines of what's not acceptable, and just about anything goes. If you have a discerning opinion, if you want to argue, that's fine. If you want to come in there and say that I'm wrong or somebody else in the room is wrong, that's fine. But if it turns into a troll fest, then nobody wins. We all lose a good place to hang out and share thoughts. So, with that in mind, head on over to wideawakenews.com, enter the chat room, and join a bunch of like-minded folks. Okay, nice 3-day weekend for me, so I had plenty of time to kind of simmer on the news, and our guest coming up, it's Monday, so Warren Pollock's going to be our co-host tonight, and he dropped me a quick message on Friday saying, oh my God, are you watching Sanders go off on a filibuster? And in fact I did, and we're going to get into that probably for the remainder of the show, because it was absolutely brilliant, and of course it received zero mainstream media coverage. What's the news of the day? Well, if you're into gold and silver, you're happy because it's way up. But the news of the day, we're being we're being distracted with more of this tax debate. And I just want to point out something. We had a July Alan Greenspan in July, articles out everywhere saying that we needed to let these Bush tax cuts expire. The idea was we have to get our debt under control. He was quoted as saying, unless we commit or come to grips with the long-term debt, we are heading for severe problems. So what's changed between July and right now? Well, the momentum has changed for the Democrats, and this wave election has come in, and now the Republicans are in, and all of a sudden everybody's in favor of these Bush tax cuts. Look, the idea that this is being done for the American people, for the middle class, the rapidly evaporating middle class, is an absolute joke. We don't have the money to tax to begin with. You know, most of us, and this is proven by statistics, most of us are making less this year than we did last year. Most of us are not worried about a tax increase because our incomes are lower than they've been in the last decade and continue to go downhill. More people are going into poverty. So these tax cuts are for the rich, period, plain and simple. Larry Summers is out today beating the drums of we need this tax cut, and he's been doing this for the last week, or we're going to go into double-dip recession. It's the scare tactic, and it's absolutely unbelievable to me that it works. It still works in this country. We've been scared into giving away our freedom across the board. It doesn't matter if it's going to an airport. It doesn't matter if you're being forced to purchase a product that you don't want. Your freedoms are gone, and it's all due to fear. Fear of what's coming. We'll never know what's coming. They'll always say they prevented it from happening. It would have been far, far worse if we'd have let this thing fall apart. It'd be far, far worse if we didn't pass a liberty-usurping piece of legislation called the healthcare bill. And we have it across the board. We need to suspend free market capitalism in order to save it. It's fear, and it's designed to do one thing, to keep the ultra-uber-rich and elite ultra-uber-rich, period, plain and simple. Spencer Baucus, a Republican from Alabama, was quoted in an interview as saying, in Washington, the view is that banks are to be regulated. My view, this is Spencer Baucus's view, and by the way, he's the incoming chairman of the House Banking Committee. His view is that Washington and regulators are there to serve the banks. Now, he came a few days later and said, oh, he was misquoted, he was misunderstood. Bull. That's exactly what he meant. He meant it, he said it, and that's what they do. That's why he's received $1 million from commercial banking industry over his illustrious 18 years in Congress. $800,000 from the real estate industry. $700,000 from the security investment firms. $415,000 from credit companies. These guys are paid spokesmen. I got all choked up there. These guys are paid spokesmen for the financial industry. They're paid spokesmen, and they're out there saying, oh, we got to do the tax cut. The rest of the world is freaking out with austerity. The rest of the world is looking at their debt and saying, this is unsustainable. Students are rioting in England right now. The mighty Prince Charles even came under threat because of austerity measures. It's France, it's in England, it's in Ireland, it's in Portugal, it's in Greece. But here in the U.S., we have these idiots coming on the television saying, oh, we got to have these tax cuts or we're going to go into double-dip recession. Now, I'm the first one to say, government, get your hands out of my pocket. But let's call it like it really is. Why are we in the position we are in? Is it because we are threatened with a tax increase? Or is it because these same politicians have sold us down the river for the last 40 years? And I know a lot of my Republican friends want to lift Ronald Reagan up on this pedestal, or better yet, onto this cross, and consider him to be the savior of the conservative movement. You know, he was instrumental in shipping the manufacturing base around the world, and he's instrumental for where we are right now. It's been a massive spin game. We're going to do this on the behalf of the American people. This is in their best interest. We don't want to be a manufacturing base in this country anymore. That's for the other developing nations. Well, look where we are. The rest of the world is experiencing the austerity that must come here. Now, austerity here wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing if we were perp walking a bunch of these criminals in front of cameras and we were going to have some kind of quality government once again. Some kind of government that had some integrity, that answered to the people. I'll take austerity. I'll pay triple my taxes if it means that we're going to invest in things that are going to be sustainable in this country to sustain jobs. If we're building 100 nuclear reactors in every state, double my taxes. If we're going to build out high-speed rail in this country, double my taxes. But instead, we got to have fear flung onto us. Larry Summers, this genius, is going to come out and say, if we don't do this, if we don't let Wall Street keep $144 billion and every penny of it stays in their pocket, we're going into double-dip recession. Well, you know what? I say bring it on. Bring on the double-dip recession. Bring on the pain so that we can focus our energy on the people who brought us here. These criminals. The guys like Spencer Baucus of Alabama, 18 years, kowtowing to the financial services industry. He said it right. My view is that Washington should serve the banking industry. Washington and regulators, we should be serving the banks. Well, they are serving the banks, and they're serving them your blood. Now, there's one person in the last week in D.C. that I heard say something that would be considered truth. And he stood alone in the well of the Senate, and nobody listened to him. C-SPAN had him covered. A few people in this movement are talking about it. But for the most part, when they talked about Sanders' diatribe that he went on, his 8-hour speech that he gave, his filibuster, telling the nation why we are where we are, nobody covered him. And when they did, they had to put the word socialist in front of him. Well, let me tell you, socialism is where we're at in this country. There's nothing else to describe what's going on right now. The failures of the few elite on Wall Street and their partners in Washington have been made public. That is socialism. They're socializing their failure, and they're handing it to us on a silver platter. If we don't think that's socialism, well, there is no other word for it. All right, I went on too long. So after this break, I will bring on Warren Pollock, and we can get into the Sanders filibuster. It was an outstanding performance on Friday. We'll be right back with Warren Pollock and Wide Awake Radio right after this. All right, welcome back to Wide Awake Radio. I'm Charlie McGrath, your host. If you're listening and not in the chat room, we got about 80 people in there, so head on over to wideawakenews.com and jump in the chat room. Our guest, who I usually bring up before now, is the owner of Inflection Points. That's his website. Warren Pollock has been the vice president of a Wall Street firm, with black box trader, international man of mystery, and a very much respected overview expert who weekly joins us on the program. So, Warren, thank you very much for joining us once again.
Good to be here, Charlie. It's great to be here.
All right, I wanted to get into. I was trying to open the show showing what the mainstream, what media, and our so-called representatives want us to be focused on. You and I had a talk earlier today, and I think you have a video that's uploading now about Bernie Sanders and his filibuster that he gave on Friday. And frankly, I found myself, out of the 8 hours, I probably watched a good 4 hours of it. And it was absolutely spot on to what we talk about here on this show, what you talk about in your videos, and what I talk about in my videos. Now, I know the media wants us to be focused on the fact that, you know, he's an independent from Vermont and he's a socialist and this, that, and the other thing. But I say what was coming out of his mouth represents the core principles that started this country, the nation we once had, and compared to what we have now, I would truly call it, what we're living in now is a socialist/fascist country. What is your take on his filibuster and what he said in it?
Well, I think it's a corporate oligarchy is what we're living in, and, it's a fascist corporate system, and it has nothing to do with ideology. My impression was you could tell that he was the only guy in the U.S. Senate at the time, because the president of the Senate is normally the vice president. So the president of the Senate was Gillibrand, who is the junior senator from New York. And when they showed the filibuster on C-SPAN, where it was the only place showed, they only showed you a cutout of himself with no one behind him and no one in the audience. So this filibuster was himself talking to himself, as far as I could see. And the only sign of it was on Drudge Report. They had a one-line description, and it said, in large letters, Socialist Bernie Sanders filibusters. Now, I just finished reading, Charlie, his 124-page speech, which is, on my website as a link. It's in Word format. And he read during the speech letters from the people in Vermont, people that can't afford to heat their house, people that can't afford to drive their car, people that can't afford to eat. And when you strip it, he does talk about the inequality in America between the richest people and the poorest. But if you discount any ideology in the document and you read some core things, statements in that document, you'll read things such as like many Americans have a sinking feeling that something is very wrong with our country, and the middle class is collapsing with poverty increasing. We're racing to the bottom of standard of living. Our education system's 20th in the world. Our infrastructure is that of a third world country. Our health is deteriorating. And it's attributable to the fact that we lost our manufacturing base because of a disastrous trade policy. Now, I went through the presidential chronology of that, and I kept on saying in my videos it was a good thing at first, and now we're paying for that disastrous policy. And that's true. I mean, in the document, he talks about NAFTA. He talks about the Chinese having Walmarts full of American-branded products all made in China. And none of it is made in America because they can afford the labor cost of Americans. That means our labor cost is going to zero. He talks about corporate control of media, campaign contributions that are out of control, lobbyists, and he intimates that there's government corruption and government criminality. And, you know, you raised the point that all of these guys, like John Boner, was on 60 Minutes. He's highlighted on 60 Minutes. He works for AT&T, American Financial Group, American Electric Power, and AK Steel. He works for the insurance industry, for the securities industry, for the health industry, and for electric utilities. And on the other side of the aisle, they're just as guilty. This guy Hoyer, on the opposite side, his counterpart, Democratic, works for Verizon. He works for Dish. He works for Northern Southern. He works for a healthcare company called Kindred Healthcare. He works for Forbes. These guys just don't work for us. These guys just don't work for us. And, you know, I was speaking to a Chinese dissident and a Russian dissident. You know, a guy that's a viewer of mine, standing up to tanks in Tiananmen Square. And where are the American people? Where is their outrage at this? Where is the end of this? But unless our own destruction, where is the end to this? Where is the humanity in having a minority whip who works for Comcast, for Goldman Sachs, for Dominion Resources, for Blue Cross Blue Shield, Eric Cantor? And what about a majority whip who works for General Electric, Verizon, Podesta? How can it be that both of these guys who claim to be free market advocates, who claim to be Republicans, who claim to be conservative, who claim to be socially democratic, how is it that they represent these corporations and not us? How is it that we can live in a country which is divided by rhetoric? How can it be? And where will we be behind an iron curtain of tyranny? Where will we be but enslaved by our own ignorance and stupidity, dividing ourselves among Democrats and Republicans, not knowing that both are funded by other powers?
Outstanding, Warren. You know what? I couldn't have said it better. Impossible. I feel your frustration and anger when the only person, you know, and I think you know what? I'm going to have to. You and I had a conversation earlier today where I said to you, it felt like watching that Friday. Wow, this is it. Somebody's finally standing up and saying something. Something's going to grow out of this, and nothing. It died a languishing death. We're going to get right back into that. We're going to give Warren a chance to calm down a minute and reload, and we'll be right back after this break with more Warren Pollock on Wide Awake Radio. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Wide Awake Radio. I am your host, Charlie McGrath. My website's wideawakenews.com. You can join about 90 other folks in the chat room if you head over there and click on the chat room button and join in the program. Warren, during the break there, I pulled up Google News just so I could see what was said about Bernie Sanders and his performance. And, you know, of course, Bernie Sanders and the progressive tragedy is one headline. Now that could be understandable because that was from the American Conservative magazine. Why Bernie Sanders filibustered the tax cut deal. This is a Newsweek blog, and its first sentence in it is, Bernie Sanders on Friday, a self-described socialist who caucuses with the Democrats, filibustered the tax deal that President Obama struck. So immediately pointing out that, or painting him as a socialist. But I'll be honest with you, listening to him, my opinion of him before Friday was what the mainstream media had painted him to be, which is, he's a Vermont senator. He's going to be extremely left-leaning, extremely liberal. But when he got out there and stated, we can't help the people of this nation, but we can give these $1 million tax cuts to Jamie Dimon, and he named the names. I mean, he named off the head of Goldman Sachs, of AIG. Well, I think AIG and of Citi, and everything he said is, like I said in the opening, that's what people here in alternative media and on YouTube, people like you, have been saying for 2 years. What's led to this is not being addressed in the slightest. In fact, it's going the other way. With the foot down on the accelerator now, that our president is terrified by this midterm election result. I mean, this is a carbon copy of what happened in the Clinton years. Tacking at the midterm and trying to appease the Republicans, and it isn't the Tea Party-led Republican Party. That Tea Party moniker, that Tea Party movement, the Tea Party Express, have you heard a word about them since the midterm? Have you heard any of the core principles that were behind the Tea Party movement being spoke to at all since the midterm elections? That was nothing more than a propaganda stunt that the Republicans latched onto, and then as soon as the midterms were over, it was shut up and get to the back of the party. Warren?
Yeah. I mean, what can I say, Charlie? I mean, where are the American people? Where are they? I mean, and how can this truthful message be brought forward? How can it be brought forward? I mean, if you listen to me and I'm not a socialist, and we listen to you and you're not a socialist, and we listen to a guy they're framing as a socialist, and we're all saying the same thing, and we're saying basically that we're fucked. I hate to use that word on radio, but we're fucked. And nobody's waking up to demand change. There is no dissent in the American populace. There's no dissent. None. There's not even people, in the Soviet Union, people were handing out literature. I reviewed some of that literature. They're handing out literature, and they risk going to jail for putting stuff in an underground newspaper. In the U.S., the Internet's being closed around us. And all people are interested in are Pink Floyd, Elizabeth Hurley, Martina Higgins, whoever she is, hybrid cars, credit cards, Christmas lights. It's delusional. It's totally delusional. And they're interested in Facebook. And it's delusional. And you have one lone guy in the Senate, and he even says so. He needs the American people to help him, that he can't do this alone. And he's at least telling you the truth. I mean, you could read through the 124 pages yourself, discard anything that is ideologically biased, and you'll get to the core of the issue. We exported all our manufacturing. We're not educating our children. We're not building infrastructure like China. We have no planning. We have no future. And we have no Americans that want to wake up.
No, you're absolutely right.
The American people don't want to wake up, Charlie.
No, they don't, and it's conditioning, Warren, in my opinion. I mean, it's a conditioning that has gone on for the last 40 years. Like I said, Ronald Reagan, he as far as conservatives are concerned, he is to be worshipped. But truly, the dismantling of our manufacturing base started under him, or at least it might not have started under him, but he certainly put some high octane fuel in that machine. Not only that, the military-industrial complex, which is now part and parcel with the Wall Street firms in running this country, got its breath of air from him. And now we have a nation that believes these cycles. I mean, we've been led down the road that we should believe that a boom and bust cycle is the only way an economy can work. And we also are trained to believe that by this super elite rich oligarch, these are the ones who know what's best for our country, and we shouldn't dare question them. And I think that's why we've seen since 2008 the collapse, the attention span of the people in this country just drift away. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that people are rioting in other countries. It's just, it can't happen here. It won't happen here. And, Warren, it's about to happen here. There's no other way that you could have an outcome other than austerity being forced onto the people of this country. But it's not going to be until after all the super uber elite get their breaks.
Right. It's going to be destitution for an awful lot of people. And the people that have no safety net, they're unemployed, they have no job prospects, so their jobs have been exported to China. They just voted for someone in the Tea Party, and these people are going to be the super victims of this whole mess. They're going to be the super victims, and their children are going to be slaughtered, basically. Their children are going to be slaughtered.
Well, but still, like you say, the focus is, I don't even know what the
just look at history. Just look at history. I've been studying today Joseph Goebbels. Maybe that's what my firebrand speech was inspired by. Some
I don't want to say Goebbels inspired you to do anything.
Well, I don't know. I'm a reader of Malcolm X, of Goebbels, of Mao, and is it going to take a propaganda firebrand to wake Americans up? And does that person already exist in the media? Is he your Glenn Beck? Is he your Alex Jones? Do we have to do that to wake people up? And if we do that, is it more than a dog and pony show? Does it have any result more than just talking to people in a low voice and telling them about the facts of the matter for a year or 2 years, you and I? 2-man years? 3-man years?
Great questions all, and the answer to that is who knows? I personally think that we're on the verge of a Reichstag moment. That will be, we'll have one of these crisis moments that the government can adjust to and have cover to adjust the social economic structure in this country. So, Glenn,
would people mind if you needed to apply for a permit to post on the internet? And they'll let everyone post on the internet, but to have a presence, you need a permit. So if you only GMs and Verizons and all of these people have access to the internet because of the Assange case, how do we unpry our politicians from General Electric that got bailout money? Don't people see this is all connected? It's all connected.
No, they don't, Warren. No, they don't. They don't. It's absolutely they don't. Most people right now can tell you. Well, you can follow the money, but it's in my opinion, Warren, we're going to be looking at the necessity of an economic collapse. No matter how horrifying that sounds, akin to the dirt nap that you talk about, before the vast majority of people are going to wake up. We're going to be looking at suspension of 43 million food stamp participants, suspension of the 1 in 7 on a social safety net program, before people are rallied to do something. All over the world they're doing it, not here. Here we're worried again, is Brett Favre starting tonight? All right, you know what? We're going to take this break, Warren. We'll be right back with Warren Pollock and Wide Awake Radio. We'll take calls this last segment. If you guys want to call in 877-342-6673, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Wide Awake Radio. Tomorrow night, Christopher Green is going to be our guest for the hour. And Wednesday, I'm going to have the owner of TheEconomicCollapse.com. he will be the guest for the hour. That should be a really exciting interview. He has a lot of great pieces that I post up on my website, and we'll be talking to him and his take on what's coming down the road. Warren, are you in the mood to take a caller?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Richard, California, you there?
Yeah, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing? Thanks for calling in.
Not too bad. Guys, speaking about all these different things about where we're going, not going, and so forth. I've been listening to you quite a bit on and off there, Charlie. War is BS. Anyways.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What you guys are talking about, you know, it's that is definitely going in that direction. I mean, I'm almost a half a century old, and it's like right now I'm living a nightmare of what I was raised to know that was the wrong way of doing things. Especially the one thing I'll interject to this conversation before I want to say one other thing is this. When you do things wrong, you get bad results. When you do things right, you get good results. Obviously, by whoever is control and doing and pulling the strings, the results are obviously showing that it's bad conduct of what they're doing. Right. The other thing what I was going to say is I don't see right now any recovery going to happen. And the reason I say that, and I hope enough people will realize what I'm going to say is, we don't have no factories. We don't produce nothing. Since I was about 20 years old, I started complaining, seeing all of the foreign products coming back. That was in 77, 78. Anyways, seeing all these different things happening already in my life, just my life. The other day, I posted a stupid little video about jobs and all the products that we buy. I mean, honest, go and look at the products. Where are they coming from? I don't see anything made in America, except
there's nothing made in America.
Liquors and beer. I mean, my God. So
no, you're right.
You know,
I mean,
there
is
nothing. We're going to recover as a nation. We, the people. Absolutely. I don't care if we start making bars of soap, clothing. We got to start somewhere and start making business. If we don't do something ourselves, can't rely on those people. That's why we're in the trouble we're in, because we keep relying on them.
Well,
amen. I mean, go ahead, Warren. Go ahead.
Yeah, you talked about integrity. That was the first thing you mentioned, and I believe that Buckminster Fuller predicted this moment. So there'll come a moment where our very survival is in question, and we'll have to take the high ground with integrity through the looking at things objectively to survive it. And we're at that point now, because this breakdown crisis, if it happens, will not just take the U.S. down. It's going to take everybody down. The people in China are as vulnerable as we are. They're talking about runaway inflation in China today, and they're a victim of the structure. They can be a victim of this imbalance in the structure. And we just have to get this structure out in the open and the lies out in the open so that we can have a foundation for the future. And you said it beautifully. And we have to understand that our labor needs to have value in this country, and we have to have values in this country.
No, I think, Richard, I couldn't agree more with you, and thank you very much for the call. And it's ironic to me, or maybe I shouldn't say it's ironic. It's telling. He said he's a half a century old. It's near 50 years old. The chat room is relating to that because a lot of people in the chat room are in that age group. I'm 41. Warren, you're 47 or 48. It seems to be that the people who have seen this transformation occur in this country are the ones who realize, wait a minute, hold on a minute. We were told this. If we did NAFTA, if we did GATT, if we did free trade, we'd have all these markets opening up around the world, and everything would be, just fine, and we'd go into the next century, the strongest empire in the world, yada, yada. And we see the reality of it is the goal from the get-go has been to not only dumb down this nation, but also water down the value of our labor, the value of what we do. And now we have it. I mean, Warren, we are on the verge of having, an ever-declining middle class, more people going into poverty. I've said it on here before. We're on the verge of having this feudal-type system.
And we're about to lose the people that we need to restart things. I mean, Sanders talked about building dams. Well, guess what? China built the hydroelectric dam. Presidents from Kennedy was talking about hydropower being the measure of what your country is supposed to be about. Nixon was talking about building breeder reactors. And up until the last 12 years, there was some idea can-do in our leadership. And in the last 12 years, that can-do is gone. It's all number crunching. And you look at it, my grandfather was an architect. My father was an engineer. He built exotic metals, some of the things that you're enjoying now, like CDs, sputtering, nitinol, and all of these different technologies. Integrated circuits was what he was working on. What the hell did I do? Work for Wall Street? And what will the children do? Get a business degree to work in Target, to sell Chinese goods to people that can't afford them? I mean, where is the trajectory? So we better rebuild things fast.
Yeah, we spend. Richard, are you still there? I don't want to ignore you if you're still sitting there. Okay, Richard, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. We spend $1 trillion, $1.3 trillion in stimulus to do what? What have we done? We've pushed some gravel around on some roads, but as far as investing into the country, investing into some sort of sustainable jobs base, ideally in manufacturing, but even if it was in, how many people, if we invested the kind of percentage of GDP into something like a high-speed rail or into nuclear reactors? I mean, these are the things that, my 10-year-old could figure out what's destroying our country. We have 50,000 troops in Iraq right now, double times 2 in Afghanistan right now. We have how many hundreds of thousands of people dead around the world right now because of energy consumption. What should we focus on if we're going to use fear of a potential economic collapse to milk trillions of dollars out of our future? Should we invest it in something like, nuclear power that's going to help alleviate some of this need we have on the rest of the world for their oil? No, we're gonna give it to special interests. We're going to pass legislation to make too big to fail even larger and more difficult to fail. And we're going to come 2 years down the road and say, well, you know what, another tax cut, that'll spur the economy.
Right. I mean, there's a company, Siemens. They said that by 2015, I follow technology, and I talked about a company called Cree. I talked about Siemens. I talked about Philips. Well, Philips Sylvania used to be a U.S. company. Now it's Osram, so it's a foreign company. This is a company that's going to build the next generation of light bulbs that everyone's going to have. It's going to be energy efficient. Why isn't that company here? Why isn't it U.S. owned? How come the factories aren't located here?
Because globalism, first of all, manufacturing is for Neanderthals. It's kind of like owning gold. It's for people that can't think. And in a prosperous modernist society, we trade papers around. We give them names like derivatives, and we trade them around and create wealth off of that.
I don't know about that. Do you know how hard it is to operate a CNC machine? You have to program everything into the computer to tell how you're going to mill out something, to use a water jet to mill things out, this is high technology jobs. We're talking about manufacturing. This is the manufacturing of old. It's robotics.
I was being facetious.
It's a career for people,
Yeah, it is a career for people, and it's a career we need to do. I mean, the people who are when Bernanke goes on 60 Minutes and says that, part of our problems is we are not educated enough, because people with college degrees have a 5% unemployment rate where the rest of them are 15, whatever he said. It was hard to listen to the whole thing, but I did listen to it. But in a nutshell, it's blaming everything except the real cause, which is, his institution that he heads. But the idea that just magically getting a college degree is going to fix the situation, it isn't. I mean, like you said, and I know you have personal experience in this field, these kids who are in school right now, learning how to be bean counters or learning how to be the next Wall Street tycoon, they're coming out to nothing. I mean, they're coming out to sweep floors or maybe be on Big Sis's spy team at Walmart.
Yeah, and would they stand up to the prince in the UK where they're throwing mud at these people for cutting their benefits? Is the current generation going to stand up to the establishment? Are they going to demand more out of the politicians, or are they just going to let them be robbed blind? Or is their future already mortgaged? And what can you and I do, Charlie, to get people to wake up? I mean, I'd like to know that. Just let me know. What more can we do to get people to wake up?
And the speechlessness on my end is that's a great question. If I knew the answer to it, I'd be doing it. Now, I can tell you that even as the Tea Party movement was marginalized and co-opted and used for political gain of the Republican Party, I truly see the same thing happening to this community here on alternative media and on YouTube.
Do you know they put another flag on YouTube? You know that?
No, I
You
didn't.
could be flagged now for encouraging terrorism.
Oh, outstanding! That's
so
great.
how many videos have you seen that encourage terrorism? I haven't seen any videos that encourage terrorism.
No, I guess it's going to be left to the interpretation of somebody that is upset with you and decides to flag you because you said something that they didn't want to hear.
That's right. And why? I've been saying for years, labor value to zero. Labor value to zero. If the guy in China earns 10 cents an hour and he can't support himself, why do you think you're entitled to more than 10 cents an hour?
Yes.
Labor
I agree.
arbitrage. And what's happening in the world is that the life support is a universal commodity. So the value of life support is unaffordable in every country, in China, in the U.S., and elsewhere. And the value of labor goes to zero.
Warren, as always, stellar having you on here. I appreciate your views. And if I come up with an answer of how to wake more people up, you will be the first to know. Everybody, thank you very much for Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. I greatly appreciate it. We had a good crew in the chat room. And stay tuned because Jeff Rentz is coming up next tomorrow night. Christopher Green on Wide Awake Radio. We'll see you then. Have a good night.
My dad, he's got a lot of fear, I know, but enough pride inside not to let that show. My brother had a book he would hold with pride, a little red cover with a broken spine on the back. He hand-wrote a quote inside, when the rich wage war, it's the poor who die. Meanwhile, the leader just talks away, stuttering and mumbling for nightly news that were played. The rest of the world watching at the end of the day, both scared and angry, like what did he say?